5, huh?
On air.
I'm on air?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you didn't say I was on air. Okay, so let me go live here. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to the TCRC Community Podcast for Friday night, and this is the 27th. Wow, this month has gone by dramatically fast, and I'd like to thank those who have been tuning in and who are part of our broadcast. I'd also like to say hello to our fans in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, because we are live during the day at this podcast. Once it's done, is sent to YouTube. It's archived on YouTube, and then at 9 a.m. in Fort Worth, Dallas, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, it comes on channel9.com, which is a community internet radio station. And I want to thank folks for tuning into that and being a part of it and having us being one of the most popular podcasts on channel9.com. This has been a really, really weird week for me personally. Folks who are a part of my social media family, Facebook and also Instagram, have been sending much love to my dad. And my father has been kind of going through it. You know, for those of you who know my family in real life or through social media, my father is 93 years old. His nickname is Sweet Pea, and he's a very dapper dude. You know, he's if you could see his closet and his shoe rack, you'd be like, how does one man have so much and carry it so well? You know, but he's extremely well dressed. He's extremely gifted, and at 93, you know, he has been living by himself, driving his own car, you know, as my grandkids say, living his best life. And he's been doing that for many, many years. But a couple weeks ago, he fell. He was in his kitchen, and he's a serious cook. And he was in his kitchen, and he turned to do something, and he lost his balance, and he fell. And when you're 93, you know, or if you're 83, or if you're 73, but especially when you're 93 and you fall, it's traumatic. And he fell, and he really hurt himself, you know. This is actually the third time he's fallen this year, you know, because when you get older, you know, one of the first things to go is your balance and your sense of yourself. And what happened is he fell, and he really hurt his back, and he hurt himself to the point that he couldn't stand up. And my dad dances. I mean, like, he'd be dancing in the living room. You know, music come on, and he likes, he'd be, you know, cutting the rug, and, you know, he'd be doing his thing, you know. And to go from, like, just the day before he fell, he and I went to shopping. We went to about 3 or 4 stores, and he's going down the aisle with the cart, you know, picking the things he likes, and he's doing his life. I think it's extremely important that when you're older, you continue to live the life that you see for yourself as real, and you don't give in to old age. And he's never done that. You know, he's a serious older person, and he doesn't really see himself as a 93-year-old man. I think he sees himself as, you know, still in his 40s or 50s. But when you fall, it not only destroys your equilibrium, it destroys your sense of who you think you are and how you're going to live your life. For a few years, he's been walking on a cane, and you can walk with a cane and still be cool, but now his balance is to the point where he might have to walk on a walker. And going from a cane to a walker is kind of traumatic. And also, just not being able to take care of yourself, is very traumatic. So this has been a very, very difficult 2-week period for him, and for me too, because I'm one of his, caretakers, and I go out of my way to make sure that he's good. And these last 2 weeks, it hasn't been good. He's been really, right now he has pneumonia, in addition to his fall, and he's in the Manicare Rehabilitation Center, so he can get himself back together and he can get back to where he is, So I'm thanking in advance all the folks who have love for my pops, and who, when I post this, his pictures, they be, big upping him and really making him feel like, he's that young dude who's still putting in work, And at 93, it's extremely important for a person to feel young at heart. And he's always felt young at heart, and he's always been a old dude who's like moving and grooving and doing it. And now he's in a situation where he's not really, really doing well. Hopefully he's going to do better in the future. And I'm definitely going to, keep his fans, and the folks who have love for him and our family informed on how he's doing. Because right now he hasn't been doing that well the last couple of weeks, and he's just starting to, today when I saw him, he was doing much better than he's done in the past, and it's really good to see him kind of rallying, but he's a strong-minded person, and I know he's going to, come up out of this and get back to where he was at, and that's going to make us happy and anybody who cares about him happy. So that's one aspect of, family and relationships. I think that the relationship between fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, parents and children. The week before I went down south and I saw my mother, and she's having her issues also. So one of the things that we're going to do very shortly in the future is a show on aging parents and the relationships that they have with their children. And because as we get older, of course, our parents are getting older. And one of the things that I often say, and I'm really serious about, is one of the worst things about being incarcerated, and there's a lot of bad things about being incarcerated. It's hard to just, focus on one thing, because there's so many things that were terrible about getting incarcerated, was watching your parents get older from a distance and not being able to be there for them. It was very difficult to watch your kids grow up and not be able to parent them in the way that you would want to parent them. Because trying to parent behind bars was extremely, extremely difficult. And I literally taught parenting classes when I was incarcerated. And my thing was, in this class, I'm going to teach you how to be the best father possible. But the reality is you can't be a good father behind bars, because the good fathers are there either every day or as much as possible in the lives of their children. And it just wasn't possible to do behind bars. So I think that watching your children grow up without you, and watching your parents and other older relatives that you love get old without you being able to be there to care for them and to be a part of their life was also extremely, extremely difficult. Those are the two most difficult things I think that were a part of incarceration. And of course, folks who did time with me would say, well, not having a wife, or girlfriend, not having sex. I mean, that was extremely traumatic, but that was something after a while, I hate to say it, you got used to. If you don't have sex for years, after a while, you're like, all right, I'm not having sex until I get free. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation, and you got used to that reality. But not seeing your kids and not seeing your parents, not seeing your family, I mean, not seeing those who really love you, that you never got used to. And that was extremely, extremely hard to navigate and to deal with and to reconcile the fact that, that those relationships that you nurtured and you really care about were no longer a part of your life. So one of the reasons that I do this relationship show is because I really believe that family relationships are the most important relationships that they are. And so we do relationships on a family level, on a couple level, because I believe in the black family. And I believe that strong black fathers and strong black mothers are the foundation of a strong community. And if you don't have a strong community, things begin to fall apart. And families are the genesis of that. So that is why every Friday we try to have guests and we try to have topics that highlight relationships. So I'd like to say, if you have ideas, for our Friday show that you think would be beneficial, please inbox me, DM me, make me aware of the things that you think that we should be talking about. And also, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, I would like to have a guest on every show. I'd like to have a guest for our community shows. In fact, this coming Monday, we're having Charlotte Greer Brown as our Monday guest, and she's a very dynamic, beautiful black woman, and she's a community activist who is doing so much for the city of Philadelphia in different areas, and she's going to be our Monday guest, and we're going to be advertising her over the course of the weekend. But if you would like to be a guest on the show and you have something that's important to say, or you're doing some important work that you feel needs to be highlighted, then you need to be reaching out and outlining what you want to do, what you want to say, and we will be contacting you so that we can move this forward. Now, we had a guest this evening, Sister Malia Crawford, and she is a black businesswoman, a web designer, very successful sister, but unfortunately she has some home issues that prevented her from being a part of the broadcast. And in her place, we're waiting for Sister Brittany Smalls, who's going to come on, because tonight's show is about relationship experiences. And we have a list of questions that we wanted to ask a woman and then have a conversation around those questions, and also explore what a successful, aspiring to be accomplished black woman is experiencing in the area of love and romance and relationships. Because so often it's our sisters who suffer the most from the dearth of brothers that are eligible and are looking for relationships. In some cities in this country, it's 15. I remember when I was in Atlanta, it was said that it was a 20-to-1 ratio of eligible black men to black women. And that's terrible when you think about it. The sister has a 1 in 20 chance of finding love and romance and someone to care for her. I mean, that's terrible. So we are going to hope that Sister Brittany Walsh, I called her, and she so graciously said she would come down and be a part of the podcast. So we're going to hope that she's here soon. And in addition to talking about relationships, she is also the new coordinator for Black Voters Matter. So in addition to having her on the relationship show, where she's just filling in, I'm going to have her come back, and we're going to do a whole show around Black Voters Matter and what she's trying to accomplish here in the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding counties and the state of Pennsylvania, because it is so important in an election year for Black votes to matter. And TCRC has always been in the forefront of voter registration, voter education, and we're going to continue to do that, especially in an election year when your vote is so important. And never think that your vote is unimportant. Never think that the single vote that you cast has no meaning, because if hundreds of thousands of people think the same, that's how elections are lost. And that's how people like the current tweetmaster Trump was able to get into office, not just due to the white people and the misguided people who voted for him, but due to the fact that so many people, especially Black people, think their vote doesn't matter. And they think that the system is geared toward them not having anything, or not being anything, or not recognizing their real worth. And they simply say, I'm not going to vote. And that just can't be. We need to say that every vote matters, that relationships matter, that families matter, that communities matter, and we need to do everything possible to move that forward. So I'm going to, we have a list of 19 questions that we're going to ask so that we can move this relationship show forward. So I'm gonna ask a couple of the questions, and those who are on screen are encouraged to answer some of the questions, and I will definitely say what you said. And I'm gonna answer a couple of the questions also. So the first question is, this is called relationship experience. What is the worst thing that a past date or ex could say about you? So I always like to think, and as most of us do, that if you asked a question of one of my past relationships, that they would paint me in the best possible light. Well, that's not always true. You may think, and that's really evidenced by an experience that I had recently, where in our community work, we were dealing with a couple who used to do a lot of community work together, and they've now broken up. And we wanted to involve both of them. And when we talked to the male about the relationship and how it broke up, he had a distinctly different view of the circumstances than the female did. And that happens a lot. So if I answer this question honestly, what's the worst thing that a past date or an ex could say about me? It would probably be that I'm hard-headed. Well, I am a Capricorn, so that is what it is. And that I don't always listen as well as I should listen. I think that listening is probably one of the strongest things that a couple can do for each other. So many times we don't listen to each other. Or we listen and we don't hear, or we hear selectively. We hear the things we want to hear, but we don't hear the things that are really being said and that are important. So I think that an ex could say about me that I haven't always been a good listener, and I haven't always been responsive to the important things in a relationship. Even though I appear to be a laid-back person, and I am in many ways, I'm a very driven person. I'm an A-type personality, and I'm always trying to do things. I'm always trying to juggle things and multitask. So there are times when I don't give my full attention to a partner. You know, when I'm like, even when I watch TV, you know, I'm watching TV and I got my laptop on my lap, you know, and my phone's nearby, and I'm doing 2 or 3 things. Now that's one thing to do when you're by yourself, which is probably why I'm by myself, which is probably why I'm a bachelor. But it's different to do that when you're with a woman and you should be paying her attention. You know, so I think that's something that I really need to look at, and probably a lot of brothers need to look at. You know, do we pay attention to the woman in our lives that we care about, and do we really listen to her and give her quality time that's free from distractions of anything else? And if there are other brothers, you know, who are listening to this podcast who agree with that, you know, then that's something that you should look at. But I think with these questions, you know, you have to be real. You know, you have to be honest. Question number 2 is, what is your most precious possession? And that's an easy one for me. You know, it's my kids and my grandkids, and especially my grandkids. You know, being a father is something truly special. And I know that for women, being a mother is equally as precious, and probably even more so due to the fact that mothers give life, and that's something that we don't do. We can sustain life, you know, but mothers give life. You know, so that's probably the most important thing there is. But I can't talk about what it means to be a mother, because I've never been a mother and I'm never going to be a mother. But I can talk about being a father and being a grandfather. And being a father is something so precious and so special, and so many times we take it for granted, and we don't do the things necessary to make our kids love us and care for us the way we should. And that goes back to listening. Sometimes our kids just want us to listen, to shut up, not be judgmental, not offer solutions, not say anything, just listen and honor and respect the things that they have to say and that they're feeling. And for brothers who are listening, many times that's all a woman wants too. A woman isn't coming to you for a solution to a problem when she wants to talk. She's coming to you because she wants you to listen. And oftentimes that's all that's necessary, is to listen and to be there. And the second part of the question, what is your most precious possession, is the grandkids. Now, for folks who aren't old enough to have grandkids, who are loving and dealing with their kids, as I said, having kids is a wonderful thing. Having grandkids is on the next level, because you've already been through the kid thing, and you have the experiences of, your children. Now to have the experiences of dealing with their children and being pop, that's like, it's an amazing, tremendous.
John, turn the volume up on your phone. Turn the volume up on your phone.
Go ahead, do that. An amazing, stupendous experience that you just can't describe. When you really, when you get of age, when you have grandchildren, you will understand what I'm talking about. It's a wonderful experience. And the best part of it is when they exhaust you and they get on your nerves, you can hug them, kiss them, and send them back to your parents. And then you get some rejuvenation time before you see them again. And that's extremely important, and just, yeah, you need that, you know. And there's not a grandparent alive, you know, who won't say that there's some times when you need a break, and when the parents come to get them, yes, it's a very, very good thing. So the third question is a difficult one, because we always think highly of ourselves, but sometimes you need to think, you have to be real, and it's not just what you think. So the question is, list the best qualities you have to bring to a relationship. So I would think that the ability to work hard, to make a relationship work, and the ability to work hard to create an environment that a relationship can flourish in. Now, I'm not saying that making money is the most important thing of being in a relationship, but what I am saying, and it's something that I've said over and over again, not only in relationship shows, but in our ordinary shows, while I decry the pursuit of materialism for materialism's sake, it is important to be a provider. I'm old school when it comes to that. A father, a man in a relationship, needs to be able to earn money to do the things necessary to make the lives of his woman, children, grandchildren, extended family, whoever he's dealing with, beneficial and strong. When you're broke, it ain't no joke. When you're struggling, it's hard to function. When bills have to be paid and you can't pay those bills, it's trauma. It's a strain on a relationship. So I think that one good quality I bring to a relationship is acknowledgement of the fact that you have to be a breadwinner. And I'm not chauvinistic to the point where I'm saying a man has to, go out and bring the money home and a woman stays home. That's bullshit. You both have to work as hard as possible, and having a woman who's ready to shoulder that responsibility, and many times a woman may be more intelligent, more talented, have more education, and make more money than you, and then you have to release your ego and just embrace that. To me, if a woman makes more money than me, that's a benefit. I'm not saying I'm looking for that. I'm too old to be a gold digger. That don't make sense. But I would never negate the finances or the talent or the resources that a woman brought into a relationship. I think another quality that I bring to a relationship is non-jealousy. I literally do not have a jealous bone in my body. And I never have when it has come to a relationship. Because I feel like if someone loves you, they are going to do what's necessary to make you feel loved. And they're not going to step out on you, cheat on you. And so I'm never looking for that. I've never gone through a woman's phone, never looked in her purse, never questioned where she's going. I don't care where you go. If you say I'm going here, go. And come back when you finish doing whatever you do. Brothers who track their women, and want to keep tabs on them, that's insecurity. It's insecurity in who you are and who they are. Do you feel you're unworthy? Do you feel as if you don't keep tabs on a woman, she can run off and do something nefarious? Then maybe you aren't doing the job that you're supposed to be doing at home. Maybe you aren't inspiring the kind of love and devotion that a woman puts in a man who she cares about. So I've never even thought in those terms. So I think that's one of the best qualities that I bring to a relationship. And I hope that my sister comes pretty soon, because I want to hear a woman's point of view too to some of these questions. But in the interest of time, we're going to move on, and we're going to keep on asking the questions. And question 4 is, do you think you need to make any personal improvements? And if so, what? That's an easy question. Everybody needs to make personal improvements. Nobody is perfect. How can you possibly think that there are things about you, things in your life, things that you are not doing, or things that you are doing or are not doing, that would not have to be improved? So, I could spend, the entire show, thinking about personal improvements, and that might be a show that we want to do. How can you improve the quality of your relationships? How can you look at what you have and what you're doing and objectively say what you need to do to improve it? And how many times do we actually do that? Among our listeners, be honest. How many times do you reflect on the quality of your relationship and what you can do to make it better? Or are you looking at what your partner can do better, or what they didn't do? Or are you not even thinking about it, and you're just caught up in the day-to-day grind of life? And so many times, that's what happens. We get so caught up in working and taking care of our children and, doing things in the community and doing things in our family, that we miss our relationship. We miss looking at how we can sustain and build our relationship. But in the very beginning, when you were acquiring that relationship, look how much time and effort you put into it. Sisters, remember how you primped in front of the mirror and you changed outfits 3 or 4 times before a date, because you wanted to look your very best for that person who you weren't trying to impress, because you were in the early throes of a relationship. Look how, you may have performed, horizontally as well as vertically. I know when you're first getting to know a person, that can be some of the best sex you ever had in your life, because you are putting your thing down. You want them to know you ain't never gonna have better sex than you have right now. But then when you get into a relationship and a couple of years go by, sometimes doesn't it get routine? And you find yourself doing the same thing? You know what your partner likes. So it's not like you don't know what they like. You ain't putting the same time and effort and diligence into it. You ain't riding like you used to. You ain't, stroking like you used to. You ain't doing the things that will set the universe on fire. Because you had a long day and, it's been a long week and the kids make you tired and whomever. I remember when my first time she told me, wait till nighttime, it's still light. And I look at her like, are you crazy? You used to do it any time of day and night. Now you're telling me to wait till nighttime? But we were younger and, the kids were little and she was tired. All those things happened to intrude upon physical relationships that begin to change over time. So I think that that's something that we need to look at, personal improvement. How we can maintain the level of romanticism, interest, and affection that we initially bring to a relationship.
That can't be louder, please.
Because the reality is that we change over time. We begin to not go as hard as we should. And that's something that we really, really have to look at. Number 5, what are your biggest fears about relationships? I think that for a lot of men, myself included, is your fear in a relationship, not so much that it's going to be over, you know, because if you're confident in yourself, you feel like it's always going to continue. But that it's not going to be the same level of intimacy or the same level of commitment or the same level of interest. Sometimes shit get boring, you know, so I think that we fear that as time goes on, this is not going to be all that it can be. I mean, I know it ain't the Army, you know. It can always be, I mean, you can't, that's a slogan, you know, be all you can be. But that should be a slogan in a relationship too. Be all you can be. You know, don't let this shit die. Don't let the fire die down to coals and gradually become embers. Throw some gasoline on that joint. Keep it hot. Yeah. That's one of the biggest fears, that this is going to fade out and there ain't going to be much of nothing. Who has been the most influential person in your life and why? I think for many of us, you know, definitely for me, my mother has been the most influential person in my life. And that's because your mother seems to set the tone for how you view women. You know, in the same way that for many young females, how their father loves, cares for, and nourishes them can set a tone for their future relationships, because they should be looking for that same kind of love in a mate. I think that for males, your mother's like the center of your world. And my mother was very intelligent, and she had a great sense of humor. She was always laughing. She's one of the hardest working women I've ever known. So I always, well, I think I look for women who had some of the qualities that my mother had. But sometimes I also look for qualities that, you know, were opposite. So I guess that was an influence too. Because sometimes you look for things that you haven't experienced. But a mother is a pivotal force in the lives of young men and older men. I think my mom was a serious influence in my life. Probably the most influential person. Number 7, this is a hard one. Apart from your appearance, what is the first thing that people notice about you? I mean, that's hard to say because I'm not noticing me, you know, someone else is. But I would think that apart from my appearance, maybe it's how I carry myself, my assertiveness, you know, my self-confidence, how I move in the world. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, you know, because often your appearance kind of dictates how a person initially looks at you. Because that's who you see coming toward you, and your observation is this person looks like this and then acts like this. So I guess I would say my actions, you know, that's what people notice about me apart from my appearance. What is the one thing that people do not notice about you right away that you wish they would? That's a difficult question. What is one thing that people do not notice about you right away that you wish they would? I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. Because I think that I would like for people to notice my wisdom, you know, my use of my life experience to make things around me better. But that's not something that folks are going to notice about you right away until they get to know you. You know, so that's kind of like a trick question, you know. My producer, Drew, I think he threw that one in just to trip us up here. But that's a good question, and that's one I'm really going to have to think about on a deeper level. What is the one thing that people do not notice about you right away that you wish they would? Maybe that even though I say that I'm not lonely, that I enjoy being a bachelor, that I like living alone, that I embrace the freedom, I think that may be a facade, and inside I would really like to be in a relationship that was all the things that I want, and that I haven't found recently. I don't know. See how these questions make you think?
Mm-hmm.
Number 9. What are 3 things that you cannot live without? Sex, food, and money? Not necessarily in that order. No, I'm being facetious because I've lived without sex for 25 years in a federal penitentiary. So that's something I can definitely live without. I've been broke more often than not, so I can definitely live without money. Food, you definitely can't live without. And I love food, I adore food, and I'm a serious cook, and I love creating food. I was even, when I was incarcerated for 25 years, for most of those years I worked in the kitchen simply because that's where the food was, and it's smart to work where the food is. And I ran the bakery. I'm a great baker, I'm a good cook, and I love, the whole food thing. I think 3 things I can't live without is family, food, and strategic resources. Because I'm not into money for money's sake, but I realize the importance of having the resources to live well, and I like to live well. What is your definition? Number 10 is, what is your definition of intimacy? That's a serious question, because intimacy is so many different things to different people. Most people, when they think of intimacy, they immediately think about sex, and sex is intimacy. I tend to have the view that sex is a religious experience. Sex is a spiritual experience. Sex is probably the closest that you can get to the Creator and the other realms of existence with the right person that there is. So I think that a sexual experience that has meaning and emotion and love and joy and fun, that is intimacy. But also intimacy is understanding someone and recognizing the humanness of someone and having fun with someone, wanting to make them laugh, wanting to make them enjoy life, wanting to see their eyes light up with pleasure. And intimacy can be making a meal for someone you care about and just watching them savor the food that you created for them. Or intimacy can be listening to them and observing them and then trying to fulfill some need that you see that they haven't expressed to you. That's intimacy. When you do something for someone that they haven't asked for, and you do it because you've observed them, and you really think that's going to make them happy, then that's intimacy. Gene Doe, when you says that comment works both ways, what are you? I've only got another comment. Gene Doe says, men switch up as well in a relationship. Men have wandering eyes, always thinking they are missing something better, only to find out they had the best. Yes, that's true. I'm not gonna lie about that. That's why I wanted to have a woman on the show. And that's why I mean, I'm not saying I'm mad at Sister Leah and Sister Brittany who haven't shown up, but if I had a woman here discussing this with me, I mean, this would be, you know, so much more powerful. And I'm going to really, really push for my female guests, you know, to come onto the program, and also for my guests in general, you know, who often promise to be at a podcast and then something gets in their way. Maybe I need to start getting sponsors for the program, and you know, we can make sure we have guests, because guests make a podcast much, much nicer. 11. What was the most fun date you ever had? Most fun date I ever had. That's a hard question, because I've had a lot of fun dates. You know, I like to think that the women that I've dated have been extremely good dates. But the most fun, it depends on how you define fun, because I've gone to a museum, you know, and had mad fun, like, because it was intellectually stimulating, and I love museums and I love learning, and the person I was with was equally into it, and we were arguing about, you know, history, and that was a fun date. And I'll tell you, one time I had a date, you know, and it was an ongoing relationship, and after sex we lay in the bed and we talked all night, and we argued about everything from Babylonian history, because she was a writer, and there was very few things that we, you know, discussed that, you know, she didn't know something about. And I'm a historian buff, and I know a lot of different things, you know, and I love a good argument. And we had we'd gone down to Old City, and we had dinner, and then we came home and we made love, and then we talked all night. And I think that was probably one of the most fun dates I ever had. And I think that the conversation that we had was better than the food that we ate, and definitely more powerful than the sex we had. So that might sound weird, because we went to a great restaurant and we had a great meal and we had some awesome sex, but the conversation, we literally talked all night until the sun came up, and that was probably the most fun date I ever had, you know. But that was due to the nature of the intellect of the woman who I was with, and the things we had in common, and also the things we didn't have in common, because we argued about everything, but we had fun. We weren't arguing, fighting, we were arguing from different perspectives. So yeah, that was the most fun date I ever had. That brings back some memories. What is your favorite way to relax? I think that in the past I would have automatically said reading a book. And when I was incarcerated, I literally read thousands of books. In fact, I have a bookshelf right here in our office, and if I could tilt the camera, I read virtually every book on those bookshelves. And because many of these are my personal books, you know, that I brought home from prison and that I accumulated in the time that I've been home from prison. But in the 10 years that I've been home from prison, my reading has lessened year by year by year. And right now I'm reading a book, and I'm consciously putting it in my bag, and I'm reading, like, you know, and when I used to do more reading, like when I was traveling on subways and buses, and now that I have a car, I don't read, you know, in that way. So I'm finding that when I'm relaxing now, I'm on my phone, or I've got my laptop on my lap, you know, I'm on some sort of social media or some sort of media. I'm watching a movie, or I'm watching the highlights of a basketball game or a football game, because due to my time frame, I rarely if ever watch a whole game of anything. You know, probably only a Eagles game, you know, or like the Super Bowl or the World Series. All the rest of my sports, I get in a condensed fashion. I watch highlights because I just don't have the time to sit for 2 hours and watch a whole sporting events. So I think how I'm relaxing now is much different than how I relaxed earlier in my life. And that's because of the evolution of technology and how things have changed. And that's strange. I mean, when I think about it, I'm literally reading less and less. I'm watching more videos. I don't read newspapers anymore. I go online and I read newspapers. You know, one thing I don't do is I don't like the electronic books. You know, but maybe I'm watching films instead of reading books. You know, but I'm just not reading as much. And that was my primary means of relaxation for much of my life. 13. What disgustes you? A lot of things disgust me. But the main things that disgust me is dirt, filth, and disorder. My grandchildren say I have, what is it, OCD? Obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't like things that are not clean. I don't, when you wash a dish, when you finish eating, wash your dish. When you cook, clean the pot out, wash it, put it back on the rack. You know, when you use the bathroom, you know, wash the tub out when you finish showering. You know, wipe things down. You know, don't leave things messed up. You know, for the last couple years, several of my grandkids live with me. Yo, it's been a trauma. Now, nobody lives in my house but me, and it's a wonderful thing. Because that means once I clean something, it stays clean. When I cook and I put things away, you know, it's done. Who puts pots in the refrigerator? Wash the pot out. I mean, put leftover food in a Tupperware bowl. That's why they're there. You know, wash the pot out, put it on a rack, put the Tupperware bowl in the refrigerator. Don't drink the last of the juice and leave this much juice in the refrigerator. Finish drinking it, throw the bottle away. Cereal boxes. Why are you leaving this much cereal in the box? Eat that, throw the box away. Be clean. Cleanliness to me is the most important thing you can do. If you can't do that, that's disgusting. How you get up in the morning and leave your clothes all over the room, leave your bed unmade, and then go out the house? Don't you want to come home to a clean house? Do you want to come home and clean? When you wash your clothes, fold your clothes up and put them away. Don't put them in the bag. They're going to be all wrinkled later on. It's little things. That's probably why I ain't got a woman. I'm fussy as shit. Number 14. When was the last time you cried? That's an easy one. I cry all the time. Yes, I'm a gangster, but I'm a gangster who does not feel that crying is a sign of unmasculinity. You know, sometimes you cry because you're sad. Sometimes you cry because you're happy. Sometimes you cry because when you are saying something, it means so much, or when you see something, it hits you in such a way. I'm a Rastafarian Quaker, and if you've never been to a Quaker meeting, there's no minister and there's no sermon. You know, it's an hour of silent meditation, and during the course of that meditation, if the spirit hits you, you stand up and you give what's called a message. This past week, I was at the Germantown monthly meeting, and I was given a message about my mother, who I went to visit last month, and she's in early stages of Alzheimer's. And while I was there, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, and I walked past the room and looked in on her, and she was sitting on the edge of the bed. And when I walked in the room and I sat down next to her, at first she didn't recognize me, and I had to explain to her who I was and what I was doing in her house in the middle of the night, and that was extremely traumatic. But I had done it, several times, so I was getting used to it. Then when I brought her back to where she was, and she recognized me and she was herself, she said something to the effect of, I don't know how long I can keep doing this. And what's going to happen when I can't remember y'all? What's going to happen when I don't know y'all are my kids anymore? And tears fill my eyes. I was literally crying. My mother was saying, will you still love me even if I don't recognize you as my son? I mean, how could you not cry? So I think that, men, sometimes we get caught up in being men. Fuck that. Be a human being. Be real. If I cry at funerals, sometimes I cry watching TV. I'll see shit on TV that brings tears in my eyes. That just means you're human. It don't mean you're soft. Because ain't nothing soft about me. But I'm human to the point that I can show my emotions. I'm not afraid to hide my emotions. So yeah, I cry. When was the last time I cried? So many times. Number 15. What do you like to spend money on? Several things. I like to spend money on those who I love. I like making folks happy. Personally, for myself, I love dressing well. I love shoes. I got a shoe rack that holds 60 pair of shoes, and it's all filled, and I got an overflow. I'm thinking about a second rack, but I don't need a second rack of 60. Maybe like a second rack of like 30, I don't know. Like I know if I get a second rack of 60, I'll just buy more shoes. But I love looking well. I love dressing well. I love shirts and ties and overcoats, and I like looking cosmopolitan and well-dressed. I think it's a dying art. This morning I was at the rehabilitation / nursing facility that my father is, and one of the nurses came in and, I'm sorry, she was a physical therapist. She came in to take my father to his therapy, which was going to end my visit, So I got up, and I was getting ready to go, and she said to me, it's so nice to see a young man so well dressed. What do you do? And I explained what I did. But I think that the compliment was that so often we don't dress up. And I don't have to wear a shirt and tie and my nicest clothes to work every day. I can wear, regular shirt and, dress down Friday, you can wear jeans. But I choose to look as good as possible because I'm in a position where I can make an impression on a lot of different people. Young people who coming for services. When I go out to represent, you should be looking your best. So I think I like to spend money on, those that I love, my family, and looking as well as I can look. I really am happy when I'm well dressed. How much money do I need a year to be comfortable? Well, I've always said that, to make $1,000 a week, would be comfortable. Now I'm making more than that, and you could definitely use more than that. I think if I made $100,000 a year, 120, you know, I could be more than comfortable. And that's one of my aspirations, you know. I'm trying to, the work that I'm doing in the New Jersey State Library pays me a decent salary, but I'd like to be able to generate maybe a equal amount at TCRC so that I can live on a higher level, and I'd be very comfortable. And I'm not a greedy person, you know. If I can pay all my bills, have a nice vehicle, you know, take care of those around me who I care about, I'm happy. Number 17, how would I describe a perfect date? I think it's one where you're both having a good time. Some people think that perfect dates are when you're getting to know one another. I think that in relationships, you should always be getting to know one another. I think one of the problems with relationships is we stop getting to know one another. We think that we know everything about a person, and we no longer are doing the necessary things to make each other happy. So a perfect date would be when I am with a person and we're really intent on having a good time, you know, really intent on having a good time with each other, and we're doing something we both enjoy. One thing that I really enjoy is watching films. And I don't really like to watch films. I mean, I'll watch films on TV. I'll watch films on my phone. But I really like to watch a film in the new style theater they have, you know, where you're sitting in the, like, you know, living room style seats, big screen, Cinemax sound, and it's, you know, it's a wonderful experience. So I think that a perfect date would be a great movie, and then maybe go out to eat, and then have some serious physical activity after the date if you're in that stage of your relationship. You know, there are sometimes when you're having the first part of that date and you're not in that, you know, mental framework where you're having a physical relationship. And to me, it doesn't always have to be physical, you know, to be a perfect date. A perfect date can just be spending time with somebody who you really like and having a really serious time and building a good memory. So I think that's my description of a perfect date. Building a perfect memory. Something you can look back on and say, that was the best time I had. We have 2 more questions and we're done. And let me try to keep the podcast inside of our time frame. What 3 qualities must your partner have? Definitely a sense of humor. You gotta have a sense of humor messing with me, you know, because I like to laugh, I like to have fun, you know. Sometimes I have a morbid, sarcastic sense of humor, you know, so you gotta be able to deal with that. You can't be thin-skinned or not be able to take a bust, because I'll bust on you. You know, you come through with your hair crazy or not looking your best. I'm not one of these guys who say, dear, do I look good in this dress? Oh, hell no, that's not your color. No, that's not you. You know, you need to, you know, take that off and put on something better, you know. And so I think that having a sense of humor and just being real, you know, is a quality that you definitely must have if you're going to deal with me. Patience, you got to be patient, you know, because sometimes I can be a perfect ass, you know, and I'm not always, you know, I say a lot of good shit on this podcast, and I mean well, you know, trust that, you know, I mean the best. But as I said earlier, there are times that I don't listen, you know, there are times when I'm so focused on what I'm doing that I'm not considerate of what others want. And that's something I got to work on, but it's not something that I think overnight is going to just change, you know. So I think that if you deal with me, you definitely have to be patient, and you got to be fine. I mean, in that sense, I'm superficial as a mother. I like a fine woman, and I'm not talking about, you know, I mean, you know, I'm not one of them guys who's on the big butts and, you know, the big breasts. I mean, you know, to me, the physical attributes differ from woman to woman. But you got to be fine. You got to have a nice smile and a blazing personality. And you got to be smart as can be. You know, you got to be as smart as me. If you ain't as smart as me, we ain't gonna have nothing to talk about. You know, we ain't gonna grow together. So yeah, those are qualities that you have to have. What is the worst habit that you have? I think too much of myself. I got an ego big as all outdoors. But you need that if you're gonna move forward in life. If you're gonna be great, you got to think you're great. You know, what person has ever attained anything in life thinking that they ain't nothing? So yeah, the worst habit I have is I have a overinflated opinion of my own abilities. But that's not gonna change. That's just who I am. So I'd like to thank all those who hung in for my video, hung in for the podcast. I'd like to talk greasy to Sister Brittany, who told me she was coming, and she was taking Uber down here, and she never got here. But thank you for saying that, because I wouldn't have started the podcast and started doing this, you know, without thinking that at any moment you were going to walk in the door and make it better. So I'm definitely inviting you back, you know, because Sister Brittany is a dynamic sister, and she's doing some crazy things with Black Voters Matter. And I'm gonna try to get her in here next Wednesday, so that we can, well, you know, Wednesday's New Year's Day. So we probably won't do a podcast on Wednesday. I'm gonna have her back as soon as possible so that we can have her as a guest. And Sister Leah Crawford, she's beautiful, she's funny, she ghetto as a mug, which I love. I love ghetto women. And she's gonna make a great relationship guest. And I'm going to have her back as soon as she get a hot water heater fix. Yeah, I'll put your ass out there. Get your hot water heater fixed and come on to the show. So take care. I really enjoyed the podcast, as I enjoy, you know, serving the community. And we will definitely see you now. This Monday, Sister Charlotte Greer Brown is going to be on. She's a dynamic sister, and you will love what she has to say. And I encourage you to be here Monday at 8 p.m. and be a part of this podcast. Thanks to our producer, Drew, who set everything up and who is an essential part of the TCRC community family. As always, in closing, I would like to wish you peace, power, and respect. And now ends our video.